All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. We're just 2 weeks into the NFL season, but the landscape has certainly shifted. We have players that we are ranking as RB3s, wide receiver 3s coming into the season. They're now firmly inside the top 12 of their respective positions. We won't quite be focusing on those particular players, but instead our favorite week 3 sleeper starts. Yes, welcome back to the Primer episode. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I'm joined by a man who's been on top of all the shaking and the bacon inside the expert consensus rankings. You can call him the Ricky Bobby of our staff. He's Derek Brown. What's up, D-Bro? How are you as we approach yet another weekend of NFL football?
That intro was fantastic, and now you started talking about bacon, and now I'm hungry, Seth.
Yes.
Is there anything, before we get into this real fast, is there anything that you can't put bacon on? Like within the realms of like decent reality. Like, I'm not talking about adding bacon to your breakfast cereal, but like,
sure.
Is there anything that bacon doesn't make better? Seriously.
I legitimately can't think of one. I am stumped on that because mac and cheese, put it in there. Sandwiches,
bacon.
Put it in there. Burger,
bacon.
Put it in there. Pretty much, yeah. Yep. Absolutely. 100% with you there.
Anything and all things. Bacon.
Yep. Maybe a little bacon on top of these starts we got for you this week as well. Quick shout out to everyone who's tuning in either on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel or the audio feed. We see you. We appreciate you. Please do us a quick favor. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new. Also, if you want a chance to win a signed Jamar Chase signed Bengals jersey for free, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head over to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, download the Fantasy Pros app, B, leave a review for this podcast, or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you go ahead and complete, the more entries you're going to receive. And we will be announcing a winner right here on the program. So make sure you turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new programs are up and you can claim your prize if you're that lucky winner. Derek, let's go ahead and jump into the quarterback position where I don't know if you're trying to just, butter me up here with a little more bacon talk, but you certainly are speaking to me here with one of my favorite players out there in the Steel City.
I was going to say, man, I'm playing to the Yinzer crowd just a little bit. Come on, dude. But no, seriously, Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic start this week. QB 26 in ECR is laughable. One, he's QB 14 in fantasy points per game. And two, the New England Patriots defense has been god-awful, man. Like, their pass defense has not been anything close to what I thought we were going to get. Maybe they get Christian Gonzalez back. Even if they do, I don't know if he's a full-time player and if it matters that much this week. New England cannot stop the pass, man. So I think Aaron Rodgers, and they can't pressure the quarterback, and that's huge for Aaron Rodgers. Looking at New England, they've allowed the highest yards per attempt, the most passing yards per game, Seth, the 8th highest passer rating, and like I said, Aaron Rodgers is going to have plenty of time to dice them up when he's going to face a team that has the 12th lowest pressure rate. So I'm not in on the old man every single week, but he's going to look younger this week, dude.
Yeah, man, smoking that ayahuasca and some other things, potentially keeping him young forever. And I think potentially why the expert consensus rankings have him so low, Derek, is because when you actually look at fantasy points per game, it hasn't been great for New England, quarterbacks going up against them. But that's because no one's been running, right? They've had Geno Smith, they've had Tua Tagovailoa. But both of those guys had over 300 passing yards. Both those guys scored a passing touchdowns. And you look at who's leading the league in passing yards allowed. Well, it's the Patriots. Like you said, Christian Gonzalez hasn't been himself. The free agent acquisitions they've brought in also haven't done what they meant to do. So I think it's a lot of overlook by the community as a whole this week. And I like this little sleeper play and a little Permani sandwich action. You can also put bacon on that one there, Derek.
Hey, like I said, bacon is undefeated, bro.
Let's go to the running back position, Derek, where you have one play this week staying in this same game.
Why is Rhamondre Stevenson ranked as RB29 in ECR? I can't seem to square this in my head. Like, he is the clear leader of the Patriots backfield. I'm not telling everybody that, look, Travion Henderson does not need more touches, and maybe that happens this week. I still think he's going to lead them in everything meaningful for Stevenson. He's played 65% of the snaps in both games. He's looked extremely good, Seth. Like, he's gotten 3 of the 5 red zone rushing opportunities. He's averaging 84.5 total yards per game. He's the RB19 in fantasy points per game. So the fact that I could even bring up Rhamondre Stevenson's name as a player that is not ranked inside the top 24 is kind of ridiculous. And then you look at what he's done. Again, like, he's played well. He's healthy. Amongst 50 qualifying running backs, Seth, he's 18th in explosive run rate. He's 14th in yards after contact per attempt. And again, sorry, we gave a lot of love to the Steelers at the top of this, but now we also got to throw some shade, man. What the heck has happened to this supposed to be awesome defense? Yeah. They cannot stop the pass. They cannot stop the run. Pittsburgh has given up the third highest explosive run rate so far this season, the fifth most rushing yards per game, and the second highest missed tackle rate. Like, they have way too much talent on this defense to play as bad as they're playing, but they're playing really terrible, so we can take advantage in fantasy.
Yeah, I think this is a byproduct of what happens when you have veterans missing training camp. You know, Cam Hayward didn't show up until the very last minute. He wanted that new deal, and he has just not looked like the same run stuffer we've been accustomed to out here in Pittsburgh for years and years. And this is another situation where I think perception of this defense is that maybe they'll get it together, and that you look at fantasy points per game, they're not one of the highest allowed to the position, but when you look at rushing yards, they're right up there. They're number 2, right behind the Minnesota Vikings. The only reason they haven't allowed more fantasy points is because the running backs they've gone up against have only had 5 targets this season. So for Rhamondre, who continues to get receiving work, that's what I'm stunned about. I don't know if it's the fact that Travion Henderson picked up a couple of flags there for holding is why he took a back seat there, but I was really impressed by Rhamondre and kind of reminded that this guy has always been a pretty decent pass catcher when he's been asked to do that. So Ken Walker had a big day last week, over 100 yards and a score. We saw Breece Hall in week 1 as well look great, the best he's looked at in a minute. So wheels up here for Rhamondre Stevenson. Are you using this opportunity if you do have his counterpart there in Travion Henderson? Is he a bench for you? Is he a sell? Is he just a stash for later on?
Henderson is a stash, and I'd say if you're really in a pinch with flex plays, like if you drafted him as your RB2, you probably got to be starting him. I'm not dropping him. I'm not doing anything like that. Like, I think he's an interesting flex play this week. Like, again, I think Rhamondre still leads the backfield in everything meaningful this week. But to say, like, the Patriots, or this is a really close game or an explosive game, I think this game has some shootout potential. If that happens, there's an opportunity for Henderson to break off a big run.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I want to remind everyone that you can dominate your fantasy football league with FantasyPros Premium, which is now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager at any of our partner sportsbooks. This is the easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy football tools all season long. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get yourself started today. Derek, let's shift over to the wide receiver position, where you have a trio of players we should be considering in lineups this week, including someone who's been kind of rather disappointing right off the rip here in Chicago.
Yeah, and full transparency, man. Like, usually we're talking about 2 wideouts, 2 running backs. The running back position is just a mess this week, dude. Like, outside of, there's so much uncertainty with workloads, so many bad matchups that, like, there's really nobody else that I feel like supremely confident. This is one of those kind of weeks, Seth, where it's like, I really think that if you're playing, like, you're kind of dividing up, like, who am I going to play in my flex? It's probably going to be a wide receiver, and that leads me to DJ Moore, dude. Like, he's wide receiver 32 in ECR. Honestly, I was kind of expecting him to be a little bit higher and not even be able to, talk about him in this segment, but here we are. DJ Moore, the top-down numbers haven't been amazing. Like, a 16.2% target share, 23% air yard share, 19% first read. Those aren't just jump off the page awesome numbers.
Sure.
But when you look at the matchup and you look at the coverage shell, I think this is a huge opportunity for DJ Moore to have a monster game this week. So Dallas utilizes 2 high at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL, 64% of their defensive snaps. Against 2 high, it has not been Rome Odunze so far this season. It has been DJ Moore that Caleb Williams is going to religiously. I talked about all those numbers to begin this with DJ Moore, just his overall market share. Against 2 high, Seth, DJ Moore, his numbers go to, he has a 27.3% target share. His yards per route run jumps up to 3.32, and his first read share is colossal at 36.8%. And then if you look at the matchup, Seth, dude, we just saw last week that Dallas can't stop anybody through the air. They've given up the most receiving yards per game and the highest PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers. You need upside, like, for your lineups this week. DJ Moore, I think, can really, really provide it in one of the game environments that honestly, it's one of the few game environments of the whole week, Seth, where people are looking at betting totals, one of the few high total games of the week. So you're buying into total, you're buying into coverage shell matchup, and you're buying into a talented player. DJ Moore could smash this week.
You know, I was so disappointing in week 1 when I was on some Devonta Smith overs in that Thursday night opener, and the Eagles just didn't throw the ball, right? And I was like, come on, this secondary is not good. And then lo and behold, Russell Wilson sets a new career high last week, goes absolutely bananas here. Wan'Dale Robinson over 140 yards, Malik Neighbors over 160 yards, each of them combined for 3 touchdowns as well. So I was like, okay, that is the Dallas Cowboys secondary I know and love. I don't think Deron Bland is going to be in for this game as well. So I think it will open up some even more potential for DJ Moore. And like, Derek, if we go back to week 1 in that primetime game against the Minnesota Vikings, DJ Moore was running wide open and Caleb Williams missed him, And if he would have hit him in stride for that touchdown, I think people feel a little bit better about DJ Moore, and he's maybe a little higher up in the ECR rankings. Let's stick with the wide receiver position. A receiver I just mentioned here that is connected to our friend Russell Wilson.
This is not me chasing last week's points. I want to be very clear about that. Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver 45. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to have him ranked higher than that. The matchup, the coverage, everything lines up for Wan'Dale Robinson this week. And again, I'm not dismissing that he's the wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per game. We got 2 weeks. He had a monster game last week. So toss that out. That's not where I'm going with this. I do really enjoy the fact that his ADOT is not at 2 or 4. His ADOT's respectable, Seth. Like, it's 11.0 right now. Like, it's 11 flat.
Wow.
That is something we have never seen with Wan'Dale Robinson's usage. And then if you look at just his market share in this offense, 23% target share, 32% first read share. He's averaging, and I know it's only 2 games, 98 receiving yards per game, 2.7 yards per route run. The real big thing that I want to highlight here, Seth, is not only the coverage matchup for Wan'Dale Robinson, but the Chiefs have stunk against slot receivers over the last few seasons. They've been abysmal. The Chiefs run too high at the 6th highest rate, so 62% of their defensive snaps. Against too high, Wan'Dale Robinson, his first read share increases to 37%. So Russell Wilson will be looking for him early and often, and his yards per route run jump all the way to 3.45, which is just a wonderful number. And again, the Chiefs can't stop slot receivers. They've been torched already this season. They're giving up the 7th highest PPR points per target. Wan'Dale Robinson in for another big game. So again, if you need the upside from a flex play, I think Wan'Dale can give it to you. And then that's not just PPR formats, half PPR, start him.
It's so cool to kind of see this development in a prospect like Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think coming out of Kentucky, we were all pretty high on, and just was kind of one of those guys who you would stash on your bench. If you need to throw him out there in a desperation flex, desperation wide receiver 2, you could over the last few years, but you were looking at a ceiling of 13, 14 points. And it feels like they're starting to unlock him a little bit. We're seeing that downfield presence. And to your point here, like last week, again, let's throw out the Eagles game against the Chiefs because the Eagles don't throw the ball. But you look the week before when Keenan Allen was in that game, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. I know him and Ladd were kind of in and out of the slot. Ladd had a respectable game too. So this is the time for Wan'Dale to continue to heat up. And if I had to guess, it's probably going to be still a little bit of dinking and dunking for him too, because I just don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game. I think this will be a lot of ball possession for the Giants and the Chiefs, teams that historically have kind of struggled to score a little bit of points here as of late. Derek, let's go back to the wide receiver position where you have a sneakier start. One of my favorite prospects that we talked about way back in the NFL draft show. Who do you have?
I hope people picked him up off of waivers, man. This could be the week where Elic Ayomanor says to everybody, I'm the real wide receiver 1 for the Tennessee Titans. If you look at what Calvin Ridley has done and what he hasn't done to this point, his separation metrics, his route win rate, they're not good, dude. Elic is quietly balling out. And we saw like a small snippet of this last week. He was wide receiver 24 in fantasy last week. He's gotten to this point a 21.3% target share, a 26.8% first read share. I know that a lot of his counting stats aren't amazing, but we could see all that come to fruition this week. Because if you look at the Colts secondary, they've utilized single high coverage on 54% of the defensive snaps. Why does this all matter? Why do we keep talking about coverages? Because the way that teams attack certain coverage shells matters. Are they going to go underneath? Are they going to stretch the field? What receivers get more of a bump when they face certain defenses? And how do they attack them? And this all matters, dude. And Elic versus single high, his target share goes from 21.3% to 23%. His first read share jumps from 26% to 32%. And he has solid first downs per route run. And then the Colts secondary, like, we shouldn't be that scared of them, man. Like, they've allowed the 6th most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers. And if the Colts are handling their business, like JT is running wild, Daniel Jones is doing the freaking thing this week, we know the Tennessee Titans are going to be playing catch up. They're going to have to throw the ball this week. And I think a lot of targets and production is going to go to Elic.
I mean, it kind of just makes sense here. I mean, he's always been the type of receiver coming out of Stanford where he had to play a little bit of backyard football, right? I mean, Ashton Daniels, his quarterback in 2024, was god awful, and kind of that same mentality a little bit in Cam Ward. While Cam Ward is a much better quarterback, obviously, he's still new, right? He's still getting his feet under him. He's still, the touchdown he had to him last week was a bit of a backyard BS type of move.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense here. And give me a guy who's on the field right now a ton. And it's not just he's running wind sprints, 79% of snaps in week 1, 73% in week 2 as well. And I think, better days are ahead for Calvin Ridley still, just because he's had such tough matchups, right? I mean, 2 of the better cornerbacks in the league he's been going up against in week number 1 and 2. But I think there's a chance that we're looking back and, I think pie on both of your and I's faces, because we're drafting a ton of Tony Pollard. We're drafting a ton of Calvin Ridley. And it might turn out that Elic was really the one we wanted all along.
Yeah, dude, the fact that he is wide receiver 55 in ECR, I'm telling you right now, like, I'm going to have him inside. Like, he's probably going to be a borderline wide receiver 3-4 for me. And I might push him up into the wide receiver 3 range this week.
Yeah, might be someone also to consider in the prop market too. I'm sure his receiving yards will be low. I don't know if I would want to go back to the anytime TD market with him, but definitely someone I'll be eyeing up, especially potential SGP play. So Derek, round us out. Bring us home here with the tight end position. Another one of these prospects that I think you and I both really fell in love with from a production standpoint, had one of the best overall seasons we've ever seen from the tight end position. He's a Mac boy from Bowling Green. Actually got to touch base with his parents there over the summer out there at the Fantasy Football Expo.
Yeah, man. Before we get to him real fast, good shout out for the betting stuff, dude. Like so Elic.
What's the line?
Right now in the prop market over at Hard Rock Bet, over 35.5, minus 115. Give me that. Plus anytime touchdown score, plus 325. Gonna hit both of those on Betting Pros right now, dude. Like, that's easy money. And speaking of easy money, man, like with the tight end position being just kind of a mess, like with injuries, underperformance, you don't know who to play. I'm telling you, man, Harold Fannin Jr. Got to meet him down at Senior Bowl. Super awesome guy. Great interview. He is tight end 13 in ECR. He is going to be inside of my probably top 10 tight ends for the week. Tight end 9 in fantasy points per game, Seth. And he's getting the usage, dude. 15% target share. He's averaging 55.5 receiving yards per game, 1.9 yards per route run. It is good as the Packers defense has been, and it has been very good, surprisingly so. They're giving up a lot of production to tight ends, dude. And a lot of that comes down to, if you're a quarterback and the corners are extremely good, how are you going to move the ball and avoid corners? Really talented corners. You're going to target your tight end over the middle of the field. And that's what teams have been doing. The Green Bay Packers have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game, the 11th highest yards per reception, and the 5th most receiving yards to tight ends. So if you got David Njoku, fine, play him this week, just, considering your options. But if you got Harold Fannin Jr. and you're like, okay, do I need to play him, or am I going to go with, I don't know, Mark Andrews, Hunter Henry, all these other guys where it's low end tight end 1. And you're like, I don't know. Like, probably the answer is Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it's been sensational to start the season. He has 14 targets in just 2 games. That's one of the better runs that we've seen from a rookie tight end coming out. Only 2 targets behind Jerry Jeudy, 1 behind Cedric Tillman. And also, he is the one tight end that has a red zone target, too, between him and David Njoku. So when they get in close, he's looking for him. So I'm all in on Harold Fannin Jr., the prospect. And, like, rest of season, I think it's clear that he is the tight end rookie, tight end rookie, too, right? Would you agree? Like, I mean, I'm dropping Colston Loveland if I had him anywhere.
Oh, easily.
From a dynasty perspective, I know this isn't a dynasty show, Derek, but would you also bump Harold Fannin Jr. up past Loveland in dynasty rankings, or is that just a bridge too far?
I don't think it's a bridge too far. I think the way to approach that is they should be talked about in the same area code. I think that's how I think people should be approaching it. And I know you and I talked about this, like a preseason shows, live streams and everything. I was worried about Colston Loveland getting Dalton Kincaided, and where it's like, okay, like the veteran guy is probably not going to go away. What if Loveland isn't this full-time, like, everybody's talking about, oh, Ben Johnson, Goody, Sam Laporta. Okay, what if that doesn't happen? What if this is more Dalton Kincaid treatment and his route share is cut? And that's what we've seen. Like, he's been in the 40s, dude. You can't even start him. He's droppable right now in every format, not dynasty, but a redraft. He's droppable because he's not playing. So, no, like, Harold Fannin needs to be above him in redraft. And in dynasty, I think there's a very interesting conversation about discussing them in the same breath.
Yeah, I think if we're redrafting rookie drafts right now, Harold Fannin is not going outside the top 20 picks. So,
no, agreed.
It's been exciting. I'm excited to continue to watch this player develop and grow in this Browns offense that's going to have to sling the ball because even though their defense is okay, they're just not a good football team. So they're going to be trailing. Derek, great stuff today, man. That is going to do it for us on this episode of the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Comment down below your favorite Week 3 must-starts. We want to hear from you. And while you're here, make sure you're smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're new. For Derek Brown, I'm Seth Woolcock. Take care, y'all.